What's Up Whittier?
Welcome to What's Up Whittier, a homegrown podcast.
A podcast to showcase Whittier's businesses, personalities, and hidden treasures.
Hey everybody, producer Christine here with this week's community Corkboard announcements. I just want to let you know that we are still recording in WIPA Radio Uptown Central Station, and it sounds pretty good in here. It's still a little echoey, but we have some acoustic tiles up. We got the foam corners going on, so the sound doesn't reverberate back. We still got to put some acoustic tiles up above us, but we have those ordered. They're coming in soon. And have you checked out our mural? On June 12th at the Art Stroll, we had a local artist, Megan Singer. May sound familiar, that's my little sister, and she actually started painting the mural that we have here in our studio. She's going to come by next week to finish it up, and I'll definitely post it. Make sure you follow at WIPA Radio, at Artsy Fartsy Singer, or at What's Up Whittier, and I'll post a little bit about it. You can also follow me at The Singing Moon, and maybe if you're in Uptown while she's painting, you can drop on by and learn a little bit more about what we have going on with Uptown Central Station. Now back to the announcements. Join us every Friday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. for the Uptown Whittier Farmers Market presented by the Whittier Uptown Association. Again, it's located on the corner of Philadelphia and Bright. If you're interested in becoming a vendor, email farmersmarket@whittieruptown.org and let them know What's Up Whittier sent you. I'm sure you're tired of this by now, but oh my gosh, it's almost here. The 2019 Summer Concerts in the Park series is finally starting next week. So shout out to the City of Whittier Parks and Recreation Department for putting this on for us every single year. It'll start Monday, June 24th, and the show starts at 7 p.m., so make sure that you get there a little before then, maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. Enjoy a dinner with some friends, a nice picnic in the park. Go visit some of the wonderful vendors that they have there. So on Monday, it'll be at Central Park, 6532 Friends Avenue. And here's a life hack. If you cannot find any parking around the park, park on the parking structure on Bright Avenue. I love that parking structure. It's less than a 5-minute walk to the park. Put everything in a wagon and just wheel it on over. It's a really great parking structure. I love it. We need to use more of it. But like I was saying, the concerts in the park, June 24th, they will have a Disney tribute band. Again, at Central Park, 6532 Friends Avenue at 7 p.m. So on Thursdays, the concerts are not held at Central Park. They're held at Parnell Park, 15390 Lambert Road over in East Whittier. If Disney's not your thing, no worries. That following Thursday, head on over to Parnell Park to see Stevie Nicks' Illusion, the Fleetwood Mac cover band. And so for this one, I would definitely recommend getting there like 6:30 for, give yourself time to find a parking spot. There are so many great vendors that hang out over there. I believe in Lions Club. They have like shaved ice, I think, or Italian ice, or I think maybe that's at Central Park. Definitely Lascari's. Lascari's is usually there every year. So again, head on over to Parnell Park Thursdays at 7 p.m. at 15390 Lambert Road. And if you are not into Stevie Nicks on that Thursday, well, no worries. Go to the Wine and Cheese Soiree put on by the Wine and Cheese Soiree Committee. This is a fundraiser that supports the Women and Children's Crisis Shelter. Just like you heard us in our last episode with Rob Marin, who's a board member for the Women and Children's Crisis Shelter, the Wine and Cheese Soiree is a great event of laughter, community, and support for the Women and Children's Crisis Shelter. Since 1977, the Women and Children's Crisis Shelter, a nonprofit organization, has been providing free emergency services to women and their children who are victims of domestic violence. So the suggested donation is $30 online and $40 at the door. During the event, there will be wine and cheese, of course, a water and cash bar, a raffle, and a silent auction. For more information, go online to wineandcheesesoiree.com, or you can email info@wineandcheesesoiree.com. If you have any questions, their phone number on their flyer is 562-693-1665. This year is really cool. They're going to have a special guest, Tanya Brown. And if you aren't familiar with who Tanya Brown is, I'm sure that you know of her sister who passed away due to domestic violence, her sister, Nicole Brown Simpson. Tanya has really that is something very traumatic to happen to a person. You know, their sister, their family is taken away from them. So Tanya has really devoted her life to helping victims of domestic violence and how to break through that cycle. So it's really cool that she's coming out all the way out to Whittier for this event. It is going to take place at the DoubleTree by Hilton, 7320 Greenleaf Avenue. And I just want to give a shout out to the Wine and Cheese Soiree Committee. So I'm going to read off this list, and if I miss anybody, sorry you weren't on the flyer. But shout out to Treese Childs from the DoubleTree Whittier, Pete Rodriguez from Farmers Insurance, Rob Marin, Realtor, Tina Soriano, Reverse Mortgage Expert, Judy Brand, a Special Event Coordinator, Claudia Guardado, Blue Moon On-Stage Producer, Tom Rios, the Brookdale Executive Director, and Therese Oliver, owner of Arc Point Labs. So again, if you are interested in learning more about this event and you want to attend, you can go to wineandcheesesoiree.com. Let me see what information I'm going to put in here. I have the link to their Facebook event, to their website, and the site where you can buy tickets. So again, check that out in our description below. All right, well, if you still have nothing to do this weekend, if you still have nothing to do next weekend on the 29th, may I suggest joining the Whittier Uptown Association for their second annual Tour de Taco. I loved Tour de Taco last year. I had such a blast. I was doing the social media, so I was like running around town, but it was a really great experience. You know, I got to go to California Grill. Of course, I went to Colonia Publica, the best tacos in town. You know, we went to the Commoner. I think we went to the 40 for their, they had vegan tacos, I think. Spin Lounge, I went to Bamboo's. I'm actually going to read off the list right now of all of the businesses that are included. Participating restaurants include the Alumni, Auntie's Cafe, Bamboo's Fusion, Bizarra Capital, Colonia Publica, JC's Kitchen, La Pescadora, Off the Hook, Flight, Red Oak Barbecue, Rocky Cola Cafe, Sage, Spin Lounge, Steve's Barbecue, the 6740, Turnbull's Tavern, the Bottle Room, Modern Shaman Kitchen, Veggie Ike, the Guildhall Bar, and the Rusty Monk. I'm sure there will be more that's to be announced. I mean, as I'm recording this, we still have 8 days to go to that event. So just make sure you go to whittieruptown.org for more information. And don't forget, for easy, fast check-in, you can already register for your free ticket. So when you go to the Grassy Law at 1 p.m., you just tell them your name and you're already registered to go. They'll give you your number and boom, you're off to the races. Again, this event is from 1 to 6. So it's a free event. There's no entrance fee to participate. You just need to pick up your bib at the Grassy Law at 1 p.m. and pay for your tacos at each location. Again, you guys, it's a lot of fun. I did it last year. And, you know, I'm even saying that me, your producer, Christine, if you see me out there, or I'm sure I'll be, you know, social mediaing it for Instagram, but shoot me a DM, you know, if you're eating lunch or getting a taco somewhere, let me know. I'll be happy to go and break masa with you. Get it? Because tacos are made of masa. But yeah, let's have a conversation. So let me know. Yeah, just send a DM to @What'sUpWhittier on Instagram. All right, I really have to give a shout out to the City of Whittier Parks and Recreation Department because honestly, this summer they're going all out. So first up, we have the 4th of July Fireworks Spectacular. And it's the 4th of July fireworks show. As you know, fireworks are illegal in Whittier, so you need a special permit in order to have fireworks. And lucky for us, the City of Whittier has got that down. So it's going to be located at York Field, again, on the 4th of July from 5 to 9 p.m. Enjoy a family-friendly event on the 4th of July at York Field. The cost is only $5 for every adult, and children 18 and under are free. There will be games, live music, and food vendors on site all evening. York Field is located at 9110 Santa Fe Springs Road, Whittier, California, 90606. I'm going to include the Facebook event link down below in the description, so if you have any questions, head on over there for more information. All right, so the next event being put on by the Whittier Parks and Recreation and Community Services Department is the Movies in the Park. This month, the movie will take place on July 6th, and it'll be the movie Mary Poppins Returns. All movies will start at dusk, so please be sure to bring there a little earlier. Bring your chair and blankets to our free Saturday Movies in the Park. All movies, again, will begin at dusk, and there will be crafts and food vendors on site. So make sure you show up a little early. It'll be a lot of fun. This month on July 6th, it will be at Michigan Park, 8228 Michigan Avenue. That's on the corner of La Cuarta and Michigan Avenue in East Whittier. All right, we are on fire for July. On Wednesday, July 10th from 5 to 9 p.m., join the Friends of Uptown Whittier for their Uptown Whittier art stroll all around Uptown. So come on out. If you were here for our last art stroll that took place on June 12th, thank you so much for coming out. We love the support. There's so many family crafts that are going on for these fun events. So please make sure you come out and enjoy a summer evening with the family. I'm sure you've heard about this a few episodes ago, but just to remind you about our Whittier Pride Fest. Yeah, you heard me. Whittier is finally going to have its very own Pride Fest. Thank you so much to the Whittier Pride Fest committee. So like you heard in our podcast episode, we had the wonderful people, Melissa De La Cruz and Gaetano Gallo, who came on to represent the Pride Committee. And I got a text message yesterday from Gaetano, and let me read what it says. It says, "Good morning. If you're interested, our next meeting is open to everyone and is on July 3rd at 7:30 p.m. at the YMCA on Hadley on the second floor. It's across the street from the high school. So very cool. If you guys don't know where the YMCA is, let me tell you where it's located. The YMCA of Greater Whittier is located on 12510 Hadley Street, Whittier, California, 90601. So if you can't make it to that meeting on July 3rd, no worries. You can learn more information. If you want to become involved, send an email over to prideinfo@whittieryouthbuild.org. If you're interested in being a vendor for the first Whittier Pride Fest, email pridevendors@whittieryouthbuild.org. Again, the event of Whittier Pride is taking place Saturday, September 28th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. So much time, but really it's very little time if you think about it. We only have a few months to go. So again, if you're interested in becoming part of the committee or you really just want to learn the overall gist of what's going on, July 3rd, be at the YMCA. So you can learn more from the wonderful people. Tell them you heard their podcast episode and you really want to support them. I'm really excited, and I know we've already got stuff going on that we're talking about in regards to broadcasting from the event. So if I see you there, look forward to meeting you. All right, that's all I have for this week's Community Corkboard announcements. All right, so this next shout out I want to give to Little Monster Apparel, Port LaBaine, and the SoCal calendar, and the SoCal Car Show calendar. So special thanks to Manny, who asked me if I could be in the calendar, and you said I could pick any business I wanted that didn't already have a model. So I picked Port LaBaine. As you guys know, if you heard on Marilyn's episode for Port LaBaine, she really talks, I think she talked a little bit about her history with the car show. If not in that episode, for sure go back. Just for sure go back and you'll hear Marilyn on our car show episode. And honestly, Marilyn has been doing this for such a long time. She is totally a fixture here in Uptown Whittier, and I respect her so much. So that's definitely, I was like, if I could be representing Port LaBaine, I would totally love to. And I'm very grateful that I was able to do it. So if you're interested in purchasing a calendar, let me know. You can email Christine at whatsupwhittier.com. The calendars are $15. You will also get a coupon book with over $3,000 in savings in Uptown area. And in case you're curious, I am Miss July 2020. So again, if you're interested, you can actually also go to Port LaBaine and buy the calendars there. I signed all of Marilyn's calendars, and Claudia from Shop the Runway also signed the calendars. She's Miss February. And I just want to give props to all the people that were involved. So shout out to Art Beltran, who is the project coordinator, Desiree Ramirez, who is the project manager, Jose L. Lopez, who is the photographer and director of photography, and Lupe Jenis and Rebecca Porter, because they were the editors, and Manny Cuchilla, who is the creative art director. And if you're interested in learning more, their phone number is 562-322-2938. You can go on Instagram at SoCal Car Show Calendar, or you can email carshowcalendars@gmail.com. Again, if you check this out, I'm sure you're going to see so many familiar faces and definitely some familiar businesses that are out there. So thank you so much for supporting Whittier, supporting our community. Really appreciate that. And last but not least, I just want to say thank you so much to Remo and Jessie for all of their support. You know, they're really great. If you're interested in following them, you can go to @Remo the Realtor. Type in Remo the Realtor for every single thing. You can find Remo there. And if you're interested in looking at what Jessie's got to offer, you can go to j2architects.com or look up at J2 Architects. And like I said, you can follow me, your producer Christine, at The Singing Moon. Make sure you follow What's Up Whittier on all of our social media at What's Up Whittier on Facebook and Instagram. You can email us I'll just say Christine at whatsupwhittier.com. You can email us there. And yeah, if you guys are interested in anything else, if you're interested, oh my God, there's Anna! Oh my God! And I'm okay. That's funny. Okay, I'm definitely recording. So I just saw my friend Anna Romero. Shout out to Anna. Anna was also a guest on our podcast. So shout out to Anna. She just walked by. I got really excited. And then, yeah, anyway. So that's the cool thing about recording at WIPA Radio. You never know who's going to drop by. So thank you so much for all of your support, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, and playing this podcast. Take it away, Jessie and Remo.
What's up, Whittier?
Dun da da da.
Oh man,
Is that good or is that bad?
I'm glad we're like in a somewhat air conditioned space.
Why?
Man, the last couple of days it felt like we're baking in the oven somehow.
I mean, I was in an office with AC, so to me it was 72 degrees.
Well, today's a cooler day, but the last couple of days has been scorcher, man.
Yeah.
Especially in this area, it's kind of hard to try to cool down on a hot day. So I'm glad we're indoors. And of course, I wear a black shirt on a hot day, right?
Yeah, long sleeve.
Long sleeve.
So today we're off location. Actually, similar location. We're just 5 floors down. We're usually in your office, Jessie. Today we are in the
WIPA Uptown Central Station radio station. That's here in the Poet Gardens. You can come by and peek. Last night we had an artist at the art stroll. Last night, June 12th, come and paint a mural. So you can walk by and peek into the window. You can check out the beautiful radio studio and the wonderful mural painted by my little sister, Megan, at Artsy Fartsy Singer on Instagram. So, fun fact, that's where we are.
Yeah, off location. And today's special guest, actually, is Alex Moisa.
Yes.
Who's an attorney here locally.
Right.
And I guess we'll let you introduce yourself. Welcome.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Yes, I'm Alex Moisa. I'm an attorney who practices family law and estate planning. And my office is in Uptown Whittier, but kind of in the outskirts of Uptown Whittier because I'm across the street from City Hall. I've been a resident of Whittier for probably about 25 years now, maybe 26. And my wife and 3 kids live in the outskirts of Friendly Hills there, right there on La Bajada and La Corta.
Oh, nice.
People are going to come knocking on your door tomorrow.
Oh, they are. I really are. Well,
They already are.
They drive by all the time, so that's okay. I have a location where people often, go from one part of the city to the other.
Uh-huh.
So I have everybody commenting on whatever we're doing on the property at the time.
Nice.
Yes.
So, obviously, you're an attorney. Is there a specific type of law practice that you have or you do?
Yeah, so the law practice specifically is family law. And so family law relates to custody, divorces, and paternity actions primarily. So divorces being when people are married, and paternity actions when they're not married but just have a child or children together. And with that comes other things that often, like restraining orders, unfortunately come into the play. That's a big part of our practice too. And the other part of it is estate planning. So estate planning is wills and trusts, preparation, powers of attorney. And with that, as time has gone on, a probate practice has developed a little bit. As time changes and people's friends and family pass on and stuff. So those are primarily what I do. I used to work in municipal law probably about 25 years ago for a little while in the southeast Los Angeles area. But right now, that's where my practice is.
What does that mean, municipal law?
Municipal law is law basically working with governments, working with cities,
Okay.
in this instance, or counties. In this instance, it was contract cities. Cities like Montebello or Azusa or Commerce, all of them which are small enough that they don't actually have a full-time city attorney, but they contract them out to individuals or firms who do that type of work. So that was an interesting kind of initial feeling into cities and how they work in the government of cities.
Nice.
Good feeling?
Yeah, a good feeling of what you can do. And obviously there's a lot of things that aren't good about it, or a lot of infighting that goes in it, and you see how cities develop. But you also see what you can use and the avenues of improving a city and understanding how a city runs, because you need to do that if you're really ultimately going to try to improve or help a city. But ultimately, as a single practitioner, it doesn't pay the bills. So I moved into the family law with that,
Because it's all contracts, so it's when they need you, they call you.
or it's basically the kind of individuals that they're contracted out, or they have a contract with the city, right? So they're not going to give it to usually they give it to individuals who are certainly more versed in the field, have a practice in that and whatnot. Sure. So unless you work for someone and spend the time there developing that practice, it'd be difficult to take that away. But those firms themselves have their own politics with things like that.
And then when did you transition over to family law?
About 1998. Yeah, 98. I started my own practice. About 2001 or even 2000, I was at the Monterey building over there on the Bailey. Okay, and then after about 3 years there, I moved to the Whittier Penn Square building. And I've been there ever since. It's been since 2003.
And what drove you to do that specific practice? Is it just the economics, or
initially economics? Yeah, it was the most in demand, and it was also kind of a way really of working with the working class individual. I mean, no matter what, if you work by yourself and you work in a city like Whittier, you're going to be they're going to be your clientele. And so family law certainly is something that draws people, and not everybody, but certainly a lot of people have a need or know someone who does. Estate planning is often similar to that. Estate planning, many people or most people have some kind of need and should look into that. Yeah. So you have an opportunity to help people, right? And you also you get to know how much people understand about the law. And for instance, for myself, being a Mexican American, it was interesting and sometimes harsh or shocking to work in divorces and understand the dynamics that they had in a relationship that they want to put into California law, and which doesn't really fit. You have people saying, the husband saying, I'm going to take everything from you. You're not going to get anything if you divorce me, blah, 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 blah. And the person's very...
See you in court.
See you in court. Yeah. But before they come see me sometimes, or other attorneys, of course, they may feel that way. Oh, no, he's going to do that to me. It's like, no, he can't do that to me. So that's a rewarding thing about the practice, helping the regular person.
We'll say this before we get into more legal stuff, is this does not constitute a legal advice, right? So
exactly.
Please seek out your attorney for that kind of stuff.
There's no disclaimer flashing on the bottom of it. No, not real quickly, exactly.
The reason why I say that is you mentioned at the beginning that you do obviously divorce, but also couples who have been living with each other and have kids. In California, what constitutes that partnership? Like, at one point I heard it was like a 10-year, like if you guys were together and living for 10 years, does that constitute an actual, like not marriage, but it's almost like marriage
like
without the
legal?
Common law, there, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't see common law come up very much, okay? And so you're talking about in the paternity actions,
paternity.
The issue is the child.
Yeah.
And the support of that child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no matter what people had in the relationship, usually their individual assets or debts don't really weigh into that. Okay, it's just about the child and about support for the child, and that's people's incomes and time spent with the child. Now, in instances where people have been together for many years, have a child, buy a house together, do these things together, and then they break up basically, right? There are some assets that are common, and although they may not be subject to a dissolution, they may be subject to a civil action. You hear that with a partition of property type of action, where some people have a house and they both claim an interest in it, right? And so you can frame it such that there's a contract out there between the two parties, and since they've broken up, well, now we need to divide that asset. Wow. So that's how. And that's where I've seen it most in the context of the house, not so much the retirement of an individual.
In that example, how about if one spouse or one partner decides that, hey, you know what, I want to stay in this house?
Well, usually the partner who has title on that is the one who's going to prevail. Okay, so it's your house, and then you decide to kick out your girlfriend or whatnot, and then that person, not on title, really has no say in it. Now, that person may ultimately do that partition I'm talking about because she'll say, well, we lived together for 20 years and thousands and thousands of my dollars fix this, that kind of thing.
And then that person would probably have a case to...
Just some interest in it, and then ascertaining interest is something I can't tell you about. That's even more difficult, but certainly not the best route to go about. Put your name on title. How about that for advice? Yeah. Whatever you do, put your name on title.
Oh, man, I'm taking notes.
Our house is only on my wife's name.
Oh, there you go.
Take notes. Take notes.
Put on the title.
The presumption of title. There you go.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who pays the bills or anything. It's just who owns it.
And it's interesting because now the whole dynamic of like marriage is like, it's like evolving, right? I mean, now you have like same-sex marriages, younger generations not even getting married at all.
Right.
I mean, it'd be interesting or have you seen anything law-wise change or have you heard of anything coming up that's potentially going to change because of how
Just the institution
lifestyles
of
are
marriage
changing?
has
Yeah.
changed.
Well, the major changes over the last few years have already happened with, first recognizing those partnerships and having the Partnership Act in California, and so same-sex marriage now being legal. So it's already happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so long as you can have same-sex marriage, and before that there was a Partnership Act, and you could sign on to that kind of responsibility. So it's already in there, and it changes the dynamic. I would tell you, really, being here out in Whittier, I don't get a lot of same-sex couples. Once in a while, they filter in, and just like non-same-sex couples, same issues about money, same issues about fighting in relationships. Sometimes the same issues about children. So it's in one respect, it's always not. It's not good to see people fighting and breaking up, and it's like, here's another class of individuals that joins the rest of us in that kind of situation, right? But they have more protection than they did before also. So it just really goes on what side you're on when all this is happening, even in marriages, right? Who controls the money is often the person who thinks they control the relationship and how things are going to pan out, no matter what it is.
Yeah, same sex or not same sex, the issues are still the exact same.
Exactly. If I have the money, I think I'm going to control.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's just me there. I get disclaimers flashing on the bottom.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Have you seen anything in terms of like, again, family law, where the law's changing based on just because again, even now, like I feel like there's less kids. Well, before it was like you had a couple or husband and wife, and they would have 6, 7 kids or 8 kids. Now it's like that same couple has probably the same amount of kids, but with like different spouses or partners, and so you have like these what do you call them?
Blended families.
Blended families.
Yeah.
Like does that even like is the law changing even for that? Because now, how do you like say I had 2 kids from a previous marriage, and now I get married again, I have 2 kids. Am I able to fight, or my wife fight for custody of my kids, even though they're not her kids?
No, of course not. So that'd be a little too far. But you're just basically talking about adjusting to the changing, right?
Yeah,
so,
like all these shit. Yeah.
So blended families are much more common than we may think of when we were younger. Okay,
correct.
Although they exist.
Well said, because Jesse was reaching. I was like, Jesse, where are you going with this, Jesse?
We'll kind of put it out there. Okay, so you have the different generations, right? Yeah. And even myself, I'll categorize people whether right or wrong. So my niece and nephew in their early 30s, those millennials and stuff like those kids who never get married, they don't even have a kid anymore. They don't even date for they just certainly
they're talking.
They just talking, and
yes.
going around, but not community. We think that, and that's probably not correct, right? But so we put our own kind of I guess ideas or stereotypes into other generations. So just like when our parents were talking about things that just would have been not even heard of, right? Okay, let alone people getting divorced and separating for 1,000 years and never doing it. So all that's changing. So certainly people are getting farther away from the institution of needing to get married. Okay, but at the same time, people are still having children, and they're finding ways to work it. And I guess this is kind of it. I would say even the parents of those children are becoming more acceptable too. Yeah. They just want a grandchildren. They don't care if they get married anymore.
That's right. Give me grandkids.
Until they get the wrong one, and it's like,
I hear that from my mom all the time. I don't care what you do, just give us grandkids.
But you're married already, so they can fall right into that trap right away.
Prior to that,
okay.
Actually, no, my mom wouldn't say that. But if the child came out of wedlock, my mom would be more accepting now than maybe 5 years ago when she was like, at least I have hope back then. Now it's just give me anything.
Married or not married, do it.
Give me a kid.
You sound like some family on my side too, right?
Yeah.
What has been the strangest case you've had so far where, like, man, I would have never thought, being in the industry for so long, that this would come out of nowhere?
I don't know, because if I go into those cases...
Oh, they're going to be singled out. My bad.
They're going to be more tragic, and they're going to be sad. So there are elements about it that you remember because something just got really weird or really out of control. Yeah. But whether it's the people fighting or domestic violence, I would say that's the thing that what people will do to each other to steal each other's money. So that's really, that's what it is. And unfortunately, there isn't a bottom yet. I'm lucky I haven't seen that. Yeah. But I live in a time where if I'm alone in my office, my door is often locked. I'm on the 5th floor. I get no window traffic. And I know that things are different, right? I know that probably every year, at least one family lawyer is murdered somewhere. Okay. Wow. And whether it's California or Arizona or somewhere else, and there have been some terribly stories over here. And so that's the thing that's happening. Sometimes you worry about if it's, we just talked about maybe the couples not having children. The bigger thing to me is this lack of connection that sometimes people are getting now. They can disassociate themselves for whatever their actions are. So, you don't like life, then people kill themselves. But nowadays they have to take action and hurt a whole bunch of other people in the process. Or so it seems. Or maybe it's now I'm sounding old like you. but that's how it sometimes seems, right? Yeah. And so though, unfortunately, those are the bad stories that I remember. So I have a few of them, but without going into the details, unless you do the adoptions. And the adoptions, the step-parent adoptions, which I do few of, but when I did, those were always really fun because everybody wanted it to happen. Right? Those were great.
Wow. That's pretty intense. I mean, that's something you don't think about, happening. But now that you bring it up, it's something that if I'm lost my significant other, she doesn't love me, and I have nothing going for me. I'm taking out, I'm a Tasmanian devil on anything in my path, including anyone that helped me get there is in my range or my target.
It happened in Arizona, I think, last year, and where someone got back. I mean, someone was divorced for about 10 years and took revenge on people involved in it. And if the person wasn't in the office, he killed the person who was. Wow. It was just that kind of random, blind violence. And so that's the part really that's the most dangerous about this practice, I think, because you see people like that because they get very raw in how they feel about what's happening in life or money or whatnot. If you're going to get that intersection of drug use and then mental health, then it's a real powder cake.
Wow. I mean, I'm in the real estate front, and so back 9 years ago, something similar was happening where people were losing their houses, and now they were taking action to banks or realtors or anyone in the thing, and there was something similar where people were murdered because their association to them losing, their house or their family, whatever at that point happened.
The 2008 type of crash, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's
a lot of people lose their money; they get weird.
Yeah. So don't lose your money. That's
try not to. But we'll see.
Or don't get divorced. Yeah. And if you do,
call Alex.
Yeah.
Oh man. What other? I guess just business wise. I mean, what keeps you? Because now we got the courthouse reopened, which is not that far from you.
Right.
I mean, so has that helped business? Or?
Yes, it was a family law courthouse opened up. That's kitty corner to where my office is. And so it naturally changed things. It's funny how that turned out, right? I did do practice there when it was civil. Once in a while, I'd have a small misdemeanor type of case over there. But certainly the proximity is wonderful. I know that I can, park in my garage and then walk over there and be, no time and I'm there already. I don't pay for parking. I love dumb little things like that, for instance, right? And the judges from Norwalk, so they're now over here, so that's really cool. So I love the fact that it's over there. And so then, of course, you'll get people who just come out of a hearing upset about something, and they're Googling you, and that's where you get the people, I Googled you. How'd you find me? I Googled you. That kind of thing.
Great. Come on down.
Come on down, yeah.
Do you see a lot more family law attorneys moving to the area for that reason?
No, I don't think so. I think the same amount are here, come and go. I can't say that I see a lot more or anything because that happened. What will happen is that the buildings across the street, someone will try to situate themselves or have, usually a document preparation type of places or attorney, but yeah.
The one catty corner is right across the catty corner from the courthouse. There's a document.
It was a salon for a long time.
Yeah,
that one over there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that for us? Because I know I'm in the same boat as your kind of business. There's a difference between an attorney and somebody who does paralegal work, right?
Yes.
Can you explain the differences and how that would benefit you, or why that makes sense to go with somebody who knows the law?
Well, it's almost like I don't want to make it a sales pitch, but it all depends on the individual and their situation. People who do the document preparation, the paralegals, they exist for a reason because they provide something low cost and they help people fill out their forms. So its backside is that you don't exactly know what's going on, and you're either left alone to fend for yourself in court, or you are working with an attorney you never met until that particular moment of court. So the disadvantages are really that you're kind of thrown out there to yourself. Okay, now there's an army of people who will say, well, gosh, you don't need you need a shotgun to kill a fly. So why did you get a lawyer when all you had to do was fill this paperwork? Mm-hmm. But even then gets kind of filtered into what that really means. I have divorces where the other party is very upset because they had an agreement already. And why'd you hire a lawyer? Why'd you blah, blah, blah? Yeah. Well, because I wasn't sure what was going on. Yeah. Well, why not? Because I'm your ex-husband and I'm telling you what went on. Isn't that right?
And I told you, you're getting 10% of everything. Why don't you like that?
and that's not very far from the truth. And so you'll get that. And so maybe it's harder to fend with that with the paralegal, I would think. Yeah. But the cost is the other thing too. Remember, attorneys, no matter what, are just going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm. And that's just a reality of it. And then the cost of being an attorney from liability to product to help, all of that just shoots it really through the roof. Yeah. Experts and those kind of things.
Yeah. And you get what you pay for.
But if you don't, what you're maneuvering through, I guess you can work through it. But I'll get a fair amount of cases every year from people who are halfway through a paralegal and then something kind of went wrong, or they needed some advice on it.
Yeah. So. And that's something I probably could be said for all our businesses. I mean, you could go online and prepare to document yourself. You can go online and try to sell your own house. You can find some architectural plans that you could, copy and redo. But right. What you're paying for is, is this the best option for you? Not just, is this templated option going to work out or not? And is there a better option than what, is just being provided? The
problem sometimes is the marketing of that product itself, right?
Correct.
So
yeah.
You'll have a commercial that I think is misleading, even though I'm not a realtor. Say like the purple bricks type of thing. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Just house sold itself. That's not really true. Yeah. You want someone to pay attention to your house and make sure it gets sold and do those things, and you have to go that extra step, whatever it is. I see that your industry, people are getting really tight with each other. Commissions getting very low, and then these type of institutions, which I guess work with a good, motivated person. Yeah,
with the right person, they're a good fit.
Right.
But it's not same with the doc prep. Some people are going to gravitate towards that because they're, I'm going to YouTube it, I'm going to figure it out, and that's a very small percentage. Most of the people, want the experience and of an attorney.
Right.
and as I think as your network grows, you're more inclined to say, is this the best option, not just for this situation, but for all these other pieces that are kind of in the air. But, a side note on Purple Bricks, they charge you up front even if you don't sell the house.
Oh, so you didn't even know that, right?
Yeah, so they charge you $4,000, and whether they sell your house or not, it's 3 months. And so the motivation is not because they already got their money.
There you go. So you see that.
There's a fine print everywhere. So
Man, I charge you $4,000 just if I do your job or not.
Good luck, Jesse. Good luck.
Sounded out of line.
Good luck there. Yeah.
No, again, it's the reason why I was asking is because I get to ask the same question, like, why would I hire you and not somebody who just draws plans? It's the same thing. It's like, you can. There's no. Obviously, the state has certain limits of what they could do if they're not a licensed architect, and as long as they fall within those parameters, and they could do it for you. But the difference would be that you're getting somebody who has a little bit more experience. They're gonna work with you through the process. Plus, there's more on the line from my end than it would be from the other person.
Yes, the licensed individual, right?
Because I have certain standards I gotta meet, which you have also. I'm pretty sure that you gotta meet certain standards, not just city, state, or state requirements, but as a professional, ethical, maybe associations that you have. Like you have certain standards you gotta meet, and so you're not running the business in a equal platform. So don't expect to get the same service for the same price.
Or the remedy if something goes wrong is not as secure either.
Yeah.
So I have a cousin who has a house in Boyle Heights. He bought his grandma's house, and there's a handyman extraordinaire of the family that he used to do the construction. And the guy's great on everything, but not licensed and doesn't exactly know everything. And so guess which part of the house is sinking a little bit because of the work, right? So don't go to his insurance.
Good luck on finding his insurance.
Exactly. So it's all a risk. Yeah. And if you have, and so that's it.
No, it's good. I mean, again, it's one of those things where I always say, I have several lawyer or attorney friends or colleagues, and they're great and all, but I'm always like, I hope I never have to call you.
Exactly, right.
Or work, because it's one of those things where, like, man, it's very if you don't have the right person on your side, it could be nerve-wracking, Just getting a conversation from somebody else who's not your attorney, it's like, man, why is this guy calling me?
Yeah, I understand.
I think it's probably even worse if it's family, right? Because if you're dealing with family issues.
Well, yeah, people get very worked up, and people are anxious, and all those things happen. Yeah.
So, what would you suggest, or maybe not recommendation, but if you had to give a piece of advice to somebody who's starting up, who's thinking about getting married, is there anything you would suggest, or from like a legal standpoint?
Like a young couple in love with nothing, or the super duper rich couple getting married?
Either way, I mean, from your side,
be faithful. I mean, there's some basics there.
Oh yeah, be faithful. Be in love.
This is a disclaimer again. It's not legal advice. It's just more of us having a conversation.
It depends on what it is. I mean, young families or young things. I don't think there's a set course on it. I mean, imagine being young and your mother saying, "I'm going to give you guys $50,000 for your house," and your bride-to-be says, "That's great." Then your mom says, "You just need to sign these particular documents indicating that should you guys get divorced, it all goes to my son." Man, it's going to make the wedding a little sour, right? So all those things go a little bit into it. You can't really do those things early in a relationship. If you had assets that you acquired later on in life and you were remarrying, I would definitely look into doing something like a prenup to protect yourself. And certainly so many happen, right? Even as a dumb example was when, Paul McCartney got married again and got divorced soon after and paid a sizable chunk just to get in and out of that whole thing. Yeah. He was in love. He should have made her sign a prenup. Kids want him to do it.
Is a prenup still like, I mean, is it like a slap in the face? Like
maybe to some, but depends on the person.
I'm gonna ask Christine because she's the only female here. Christine, if your future husband came to you and said, "Hey, I love you and all, but you got to sign this document before we get married," would you say, "What? Screw
I'd
you,
say,
get out of
yeah,
here"?
absolutely. I have assets to protect too.
Well, that's
You're
the
like,
point.
here's my document. Sign this
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
What are you protecting?
Yeah.
That's kind of it. If he has nothing, and it's like, we're not going to. Suppose someone who's just starting a business or something like that and says, "I want you to sign a prenup now to it." Well, I mean, you can take it any way you want, but
Sure, I don't have nothing. There's a prenup, but there's one after.
A post-nup?
There's a
Yeah,
post-nup
what's the
too.
difference between a prenup and a post-nup?
Wow. Okay. So post-nup, sure. I have never done a post-nup. Okay. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I've done prenups on occasion, but I'm asking offhand. The post-nup is going to be just something that again allocates however assets or debts are going to be dealt with in a relationship, and why it's done in that particular circumstance. I'm not as versed in. People will do that after the fact. Yeah, but maybe circumstances warrant it. It comes in more likely when I get couples that are middle-aged and need a prenup because of the disparity in income or assets between the parties, especially with retirements, for instance.
Oh, right.
Can you do a prenup to not take on the debt from the other person?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah. If they have bringing a lot of debt into a relationship, is that
Yeah,
what
yeah. So say my wife owed like $1 million, and
It's getting real now.
It's hypothetical.
and we're gonna get married, but I don't want to take on that $1 million. Can I sign a prenup saying, "Hey, I'm only responsible for whatever we acquire after the fact"?
Usually, yes.
Oh,
So even if it's all her debt anyway, you're not going to be responsible for her $1 million of debt. So she brings that debt into the thing. The debt collection or whatnot are going to be after her. They're not going to be after you. But at the same time, if you walked into a relationship like that, why not make sure that you also memorialize that type of agreement so that there's never any commingling of your monies with hers later so that it could go after it.
There you
So
go.
in that instance, I would do something like that if that situation will really help.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where like right now, the way everybody's kind of, again, getting together, there's so much stuff that like financials are usually not talked about at the beginning of the relationship. It's always towards the end of the relationship, unless you're Remo. I mean,
We had that conversation.
I think your
Like
wife.
first date?
We presented credit reports.
Oh, my goodness.
Listen, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
your wife ran a background check on you, man. Just make sure you were good.
Eva is a very smart lady, and
But
yes.
but again, it's one of those things where like you don't really think about it until after the fact, and because again you're in love and things are going as great as they possibly can, but all it takes is just that one little mistake or trip or whatever's, and all of a sudden you're like at ends, and it's like, well, I didn't know that this. Now all of a sudden what's mine is yours, or and so on and so on, which I think it's one of those kind of. I'm married, so I can't really say how it should work. But
You're talking about different kind of couples and when they
Correct.
get a
I think
relationship. So just say as a general rule, right?
Yeah.
Most people get married when they're younger. Just to
Yes.
say that. So let's just say when they're younger, they probably have less, right?
Yeah.
So there's no need for stuff like that. And if anything, say like in businesses, couples work together to build that. Right, so that whole thing, that's where it gets into it.
Yeah.
When you get divorced and say, "Oh, this is all mine," and the other party says, "Well, no, I worked in the office, I did this, I did
I
that."
took care of the kids while you're able to go work.
Let alone people who are really just involved in it, right?
Yeah.
Because community property is community property,
Yeah.
and part of it is, I stayed home, made sure that everything went well over here while we did that. Even I had no ownership, even though I didn't run it.
At what age or at what stage in life would you suggest that somebody put together like a trust?
When they have assets exceeding $150,000
Okay.
and are an adult, I would say generally, not that people 18 ever ask that, but it's usually the couple that has a house or the individual. If you own a house, I would do it.
Okay.
Okay, because any house is going to exceed $150,000 in value and be subject to probate or whatever other asset you have that might be that.
And why would you want to? What's the purpose behind that?
Okay, the purpose behind it is that because if you have assets that are worth over $150,000, they're going to be subject to probate, as in distribution by the court or orders by the court how it should be distributed. And so there are statutory court filing fees, and there are attorney's fees, and there are set statutory attorney's fees, set statutory representative fees, amongst other things, let alone time constraints that all go into probate that could make it long and laborious. And so although people don't want to do their will or trust because they're never going to die, they do. And when they do, you have 3 or 4 kids trying to figure out what, fighting over it, who's going to be the executor, who's going to file the petition to probate mom's estate. And depending on the court, they're very impacted. I have some matters in San Bernardino, and when every time the judge continues something for 4 months, he laughs and says, that's 20 minutes in probate world. So that's a long time. And so these things really meander a long time. Also, in a trust, you just basically lay out how you want things distributed and where and how you want it done. And that's probably one of the most important things about it. And of course, if you have a trust, the vast majority of time, it's not going to be subject to interpretation in probate court. Once in a while that happens when people fight, but if you have a trust, it outlines it so you don't need to be in court, and therefore it remains a private document, not a public document.
And it saves you money, obviously, and time in terms of
usually, yes.
If that ever happens, right?
Yes.
Or when it happens, really.
I was in a class one time, and it was about that. I mean, if you have a house and it's based off of the assets, not what you owe. So if I have a house and 5 years, 10 years passes, It's $1 million. The filing fees, all the expenses are not based off of my profit or the future profit of the estate. It's based off of the $1 million. So if I have an $800,000 loan and filing fees are maybe $50,000 between everything for probate.
Well, it depends. A certain percentage for a certain amount.
Okay.
Yeah. So the initial hits are the big ones. Yeah. The bigger ones not as much, but there's less work at that point involved.
Yeah. But versus what is a trust typically? If someone just a couple, no kids, have a house, a couple thousand, or
I would say that yes. I think a couple $1,000s will buy you a good trust prepared by an attorney who will answer your calls and whose face you will see when you do the trust.
Yeah.
You're not going to be given 75 documents, told to sign 2, and said when you go home, fill out the rest of it by yourself. Because I'll get plenty of trusts like that where it's just page after page of unfilled out information. And so they don't know what they have in their hands sometimes. But they're more money. And of course, like we mentioned in the first part of this conversation, you can go to places and they'll say they'll do trust for, when I started, it was say $250 or $350. So now maybe $750 or $1,000 is the low end or something.
And that saves you, $20, $50, $100,000 at one point that you're going to have to pay.
Ideally, yes. In probate alone, or tens of thousands at least. That'd be super high, yeah.
And what's the difference between a will and a
Living trust?
Living trust.
Well, okay. So the living trust is a document that is revocable and changeable. Okay. The trust allows you to allocate your assets to one spouse to the other, and also to do things that help with tax ramifications depending on the estate. So you can allocate money to certain types of to bypass trusts or other trusts that absorb value so that the assets so that there's less tax consequences. These are all great things for people that I normally don't deal with because we're talking about large estates. And I began the conversation a little bit about working class. So we're talking about people who may have a couple of $1 million if they really did it well. And they have like 4 or 5 properties they bought to rent. So a lot of that doesn't fit as much into it. But what fits into it is really the control and the access to money. The will is just more straightforward on how things are going to be distributed. But the will is subject to probate by court. So it has to be, found to be the valid will, and then the executor appointed, the letters administered, and that person can start administering that estate. Living trusts are the best thing if you don't want to be in court. You can get around and do it. And they're relatively inexpensive, and you can get away with it. The Zillow thing's available for people if you have the wherewithal to do it. The other part that confuses people is recording of documents to make it valid. So a trust is no good if it's think of a trust as like a corporation in some respect. You're creating a corporation where you have control of all of your assets, but the corporation owns the assets. Okay. But you could always change it and get out of the corporation, put things in out. You write them so they're subject to change for divorce. Something comes in something with separate property comes in community, but you get divorced, comes out separate. You can write things like that in a trust to protect yourself from divorce in a trust if you choose to do it. So it has all those kind of variables at work, and I think the courts are open to a liberal interpretation of them should there be problems with the trust. I've had plenty of clients who forgot to put the house in the trust, and or because they refinanced. They took it out and then put it back in. And then sometimes you got to put it back in the trust. But if you have that chain and you have those documents indicating the intent, that usually isn't an issue. It shouldn't be.
Wow. Just go visit Alex.
I know.
I thought I was going to be asked my favorite restaurant or my Whittier memory
That's
kind of
at
thing.
the
Like, boom,
end.
boom.
That's at the end.
Okay.
You still have like 20 minutes,
Oh,
15
we're-
minutes.
We're trying to take the easy questions out of the way first.
Go into all the legal stuff and the business stuff. All right.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
definitely. It's again, it's one of those things where, like, even from my end, like, again, knowing several attorneys and colleagues and stuff like that, we don't get the chance to really talk like business like this because it's usually we're talking about other stuff.
Right.
So it's always good to be able to have somebody who knows more specific about this, because those are usually, for me, like the kind of questions I would ask. It's like, what if I'm in this kind of scenario? And it's very important because, like, kind of like you were saying earlier, is like people aren't really educated in the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really don't, all you might be hearing is like, oh, I heard, so-and-so, I heard this, so-and-so. But to be able to have somebody here and kind of clear that up, I mean, it totally helps.
You can go to court and be like, I heard my buddy John.
This podcast.
I heard this podcast. So okay, there you go. Who said that? Okay, right.
We already gave our legal
Down the street.
disclaimers. So. Yeah. Is there any specific type of law that you would like to get into or kind of would want to
Well,
take on?
At this point, I don't know if I could. I know when I first started, because I had such a love for music, I wanted to kind of get into that music industry law. And I worked for a firm in West Side for a summer one time. But it was a different world and a different environment. It wasn't exactly the fit for me, and so hard to break into. Certainly, we're talking 1993. And so I would say that kind of field, because of my interest in music and stuff like that, I wouldn't mind going down that line. And so now that I see things that are, you see things now like, oh yeah, and great. You have that kind of thing. When you consider yourself even the most minutely creative, and you think back to those days, it was a little bit different, right? And so getting into that world was tougher, and it still kind of is a little bit. But that's probably something I would say, because whether or not it has a glamour or not, that's just something you'd kind of be interested in, at least I think on my standpoint. Certainly at my age to really, or my level of where I am, to really get involved in something different and to have the expertise will take some time and maybe not have the time to kind of do it. I'd say really get hard into environmental law or whatnot, all those kind of things, or criminal appellate action, something like that. Probably wouldn't do anything like that at this point in my career.
Is there one field of law where you would say, I would never go in that? Maybe with some experience that you had or interns that you say, I don't know how people do this kind of law.
I don't know if everybody says that about me. So I don't know about the rest, I could say that about, I'm fortunate that I don't have to have a practice that is just so crazy on where is the next 1,000 cases for me to do it. So sometimes the personal injury grind of the small firms, any firm that's grinding a lot of 1,000 cases for workers' comp, I would think, or personal injury, I think that could be really tough to do that. Just like any other business, a lot of people out there are struggling to make it work, and the things you have to do. Being here in Whittier, my trade-off has always been that the proximity to home, the quality of life type of thing. No matter, I always think that a Friday in Whittier is a little bit slower than other days, and you can kind of feel it in the vibe. But it's something that kind of goes. Everybody likes it. It's a good vibe, right? And so that's kind of the trade-off for me in terms of that killer of always needing more and more money and something to really get sucked into. That's the attorney's worst nightmare, right? If you look at all the suspensions and the disbarments for attorneys, the vast majority of attorneys stealing money and just not returning it, right? Or basically not returning money is really what it comes down to, and just borrowing it off and not being able to get back from it. And so that's the hard thing, you know, when you start stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars, because there's really no coming back. Because you think something else is going to get you through the big pop, and it's probably not if you're already taking, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of thing, and it's expensive practice, and the liability insurance is not inexpensive itself, right? And so that's sort of more the down part, I guess, of kind of running the practice. The freedom I mentioned earlier is the upside of it. Having 3 kids and being able to be at baseball practices and coach and see them through their various sports or through band and stuff like that, academic achievements, all those kind of things, you know, helping them out at home and practicing with the kids, all that kind of stuff. That's what the quality of life thing has been good for me. My wife's also an attorney, so we have that kind of balance, and it works out. Now, we don't talk about cases in front of the kids, like people have always asked us. But usually it's because one person is talking about their thing. You know, so my kids have plenty of, I don't want to, sitting in a car and listening to their mom or their dad talk to someone for 20 minutes and they have to be quiet. You know, so they get that kind of thing.
Do you both practice in the same?
No, my wife does labor and employment in Cerritos. She works for a larger firm.
I was going to say, that's going to be a tough, I mean, at home, that's probably a tough battle, right? Like if you're trying to choose something, it's like, I'm pretty sure the legal terms come out, right?
Well, I imagine so. Once in a while, my kids will tell me that someone accused them of speaking like an attorney. Or you speak like your mom or your dad. And my son's like, what? I'm not like that. But I hear him, my 16-year-old, very articulate, you know, and so he's the one who is, you know, the youngest and had parents who've been attorneys all through it. He saw less of the struggle. You know, we mentioned the early parts when you first buy that house. Our first house in Whittier cost $172,000.
Wow.
That wasn't that long ago. You know, so they get that all the time, you know, so whatever it is, and then the friends and stuff like that. I think the big difference for my children is changing in the world is when I was younger and when I started practicing, I knew few attorneys and I knew no judges, right? And that whole world of judges, those guys up over there, they weren't like me. But time has changed now, and I have friends who are judges, and now they're those guys. So not only you talk about the paralegal and the connection, the lawyers are the ones who know the judges, and they know how they act and what they want to do and how they tend to lean in certain ways, and that is always a value because you know how to present where you're coming from, and that's something that someone filling out a form won't give you.
Yeah. It's before we go back to that or into that. Just talking about the quality of life. This week, I had a meeting with a client of mine here locally, and kind of same thing. His take was like, you know, I could work harder, or not work harder. I could work longer in terms of hours throughout the day. I could work weekends. I could do this, and that. But for him, right now, the priority is about life. It's about hanging out with the family, being there for the family, being there for the kids, and all that. And he had this sign in the back of his. On his wall that said, "Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life," which I thought was really good. I mean, for me, it hit me hard. I'm like, man, that's exactly, because that was my thing. Like when I first started my own business or practice, really, is like, I as long as I'm able to do all the family stuff with the salary that I'm going to be collecting, I'm a happy camper. Yeah. Like there's no need for me to make more or you know, extra or none of that stuff. It's more of the time being spent with family or the kids, really. You know, it's like just being there. Because I have two little ones. Before they were born, everybody kept saying, "Oh man, you're gonna like make sure you really spend those years with the kids and, you know, spend time with them, because once they grow up, it's like it's done. Like you're gonna wish you were able to go back, right?"
Yeah.
And so that always kind of stuck to me in my head in terms of that those feelings. And now I see it. I mean, it's exactly that. It's like being able to go to practice, you know, play the ball with them and stuff like that. There's no way you'll be able to get that back. Work-wise, I mean, as long as I'm not, you know, I'm able to still move and talk, I mean, work will still be there, right?
Right, and if you're local, I mean, you go to 8th grade commencement, for instance, right? Then you don't have to drive back into Uptown to my office.
Yeah.
So it let me do a lot of that stuff. I moved my mother from Montebello to over here, and so as she got older, that made all that kind of thing easier to do and deal with her. So she got older, right? So my sisters moved over here back in the early 80s, and that's really kind of what inspired me. And so my family kind of moved over here, my immediate family. And so we still kind of have that bond, and we're close to each other. And, it's just, there's that kind of quality of life and the time. Yeah. You know, if you do have the money and you make money, and that's great, and we do it too, but you also balance with what you give your children, right? Because if you give them money but not time, then the expectation is money. Okay, you're not here again, just give me more money, right? And that's the thing you don't want to do also with the children, get them spoiled to it, right? You know, so try not to, but you do anyway.
That's right. That's right. No, that's awesome. Talk about like you were talking about like how times have changed in your industry. Now you're seeing, I don't want to say minority, but you're seeing a more diverse group of attorneys, right?
Yes.
I mean, how has that changed the practice, or has it even changed it at all?
Well, I only probably have really one view of it, and it's not the full view. But so understand, when I'm practicing, still the predominant lawyers are Anglo males, right? Anglo females are starting to rise, and then when you get to the other groups, and you're talking about Latinos or Hispanics, however you want to call it, or blacks and Asians, the numbers were significantly lower. Okay, yeah. So now they're higher. They're much higher. So I would say you kind of think, and I can tell you like, oh yeah, look at all the Latino lawyers here. There's all kinds of guys here, right? And a couple of Asian lawyers, and you go to Monterey Park and a lot of Asian lawyers and stuff like that. And so I think at that local level, that saturation, that's better. We've all got a better idea and have access to it. I mean, Spanish-speaking clients are half the practice, right? And especially with Asians too. I know you guys have driven past billboards on the 605 that are in Mandarin or something like that, right? Okay. But sometimes still, when you go up to the upper echelons of these structures, the numbers are still not exactly what you would think they're going to be. So yeah, there are more Latino judges, but they don't make the majority. Correct. And people perceive that on a day-to-day where they think, oh, they're all over the place. They run in the whole darn show. But no, there are Asian attorneys and Asian judges, but they're still not the majority. And I think if you lumped all of the people of color in one group and Anglo in the other, that they're almost about even still. Not one group is taking over the other. So it also means that people have to work more together. And I think there's a greater understanding also than may have been when I started off too. But then you get that thing that just happens with age. If you're sometimes you're just more respected because you're a little bit older than when you were a young attorney. So I've had one young attorney that I work with, and she'll tell me, sometimes the old guy is just looking at her, telling, "What do we do next?" Yeah. They want her to crunch the numbers. They want her to to kick it out and then do whatever. And so, why don't you write it out? So it's kind of weird. You almost get that same kind of dynamic, almost a stereotypical dynamic, even in court, but you'll still get it. Yeah. Try to make the young girl do all the work.
Tell me about it.
It doesn't change. So there it is. That's how it's changed. I think there's a little bit of a greater access, but I still don't think there is as much, because if I go to court and there is roughly 25 matters on calendar, I say 5 have the lawyers, and that's high. Really, maybe just 3. So for all the lawyers that there are too many of, we're representing probably less than 15% or maybe 15%. I'm not quoting any specific number, but that's certainly how it feels out there. Everybody's still trying to fend for themselves and fumbling along the way and not exactly knowing what's going on. And of course, that just clogs the courts to no degree when you're sitting there waiting. I've said often where I would just want to get up and say, "Can I help him for 5 minutes?" Because then we'll save us 20. And then let them go. And then the same thing with her or him or her. And then you get the two Spanish-speaking people, and who are having the same type of fight. You have to wait for the interpreter to do it too, because interpreters are also few and far between.
Correct.
So they have to do those things. Restraining orders first. So if you and your ex have a restraining order, the court has to hear those first, unless they agree not to. So I'm stuck listening to your restraining order for forever sometimes. Yeah. The clog and the congestion in the courtroom is an issue too. Yes. Wow. And paying lawyers to do it, right? Because often if I go to court for 3 hours and we do 15 minutes before the judge, are you going to be billed for 15 minutes or for 3 hours? And you know the answer.
What's the answer?
3 hours. If you're in court, I'm not even talking drive time. Yeah, some lawyers charge, some don't. Yeah. But that's it. But I'm not saying I want to wait either. Yeah. I'd rather get out of there and do other stuff. Yeah. So.
Say, for anyone in front of me, just stand in line. I'm going to help each of you so I can get through this thing.
Try it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Awesome. All right. We got the finger from Christine, the wrap it up finger. So now these are the easy questions, but for most people, it's really their difficult, challenging questions.
All right.
And so they're Whittier questions. So what is your go-to either breakfast or lunch spot here in the city of Whittier, or places that you normally go?
For breakfast or for lunch?
Or just
dinner,
anything.
Just anything.
Just to go grab a drink or food or...
Okay, then. So, so we'll start with sushi, I guess. I mean, if we look sushi, my wife and I have been doing azabu for years, and azabu branches out to other things. I mean, sushi, sushi out on the other side, of course, is John, right? And I even remember before John and before Jack, there was at least another guy who had a restaurant somewhere in the area. And we've known Saito forever, the junior. So that's always been a fun place. My wife and I like going there, over the years. But even, it's funny, Whittier for me was the place where I developed a palate. I mean, the first Japanese restaurant I went to was Machi's out there on really? Greenleaf. Yeah. Uh-huh. Back in the early 80s, when everybody there was old. Now they're even younger. And then those places I love to go to, my wife and I. The restaurant scene, we like to hit what we can. But for instance, whether it's a nice drink at the Nixon or New Canton, right? I think New Canton does a great menu at a great price, right? You want to do tacos in Whittier, of course you can do tacos. Whether it's Bizarra Capital, which is really great, or even going to like a small hole in the wall like Victoria's for lunch. You ever do Victoria's?
Victoria's, which is Victoria's?
They're on Santa Fe Spring. They're probably unincorporated. Santa Fe Springs and Lambert.
Yes.
They have the menu handwritten on the wall.
Yes.
Right, but a real dinky place. You don't want to go there like yesterday, day before, because it's 110 degrees in there.
Yeah.
They don't have AC.
No AC. The AC is the door.
Is that catty corner from Arco? Or that's Mulberry.
Right behind it.
It's right next to the 7-Eleven.
Oh, you go.
Just east of the 7-Eleven. Okay.
This cash only.
Cash only, right? So it's really those are like a quick lunch spot. I always like to grab a sandwich if I can. The time constraint, right? So when the Deli Up was closer to me, that was kind of cool. But now they've kind of moved a little bit further, so I can't walk there as fast. That's another thing too about being here. Still, I love the ability to walk places. So even from my office, a far walk is like 7 or 8 minutes, and that's not really anything. And I can walk almost all the way to the other side, right? So that part I really like about the city to hit other parts. Nice. Get my hair cut over there, Paloma and friends, and then come down and eat somewhere down the street, right?
Nice. Just get a golf cart.
I know.
I mean, if I had a practice like that and I would venture, I always thought I'll get a golf cart for a couple $1,000 and zip on over.
I thought of that. A neighbor has one and I see him using it. Yeah. And I thought of that. Then I could just put all that kind of advertising and whatever I'm doing at that moment on the whole thing, right? Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, maybe get into a little fender better, my little thing there, and then have my own card and say, hey, have it over here.
I'm going to sue myself. And then how about... maybe what's one of your most fondest memories here in Whittier?
Oh, fondest memories. Well, I guess I would even kind of put them in two categories. I think right now, my fondest memories are really my kids growing up in Whittier and the things that have happened with that. Right? I have my 17-year-old got recognized on the varsity baseball team. That was really cool for a variety of things.
Nice.
My son is graduating from Northwestern in Chicago and went to Lucerne. I was high honors over there. So seeing their kind of achievements is my fondest memories, kind of like being here in Whittier and things. Growing up and coming to Whittier, kind of a different kind of overlay or underlay, but memories of coming with my mom and going to the quad when the quad was the quad. And I think that people been here long enough, they know what I mean. All those great stores that were there. One of my first dietary or tasting different tastes of life came from even going to the Make Company down there at the quad. And you guys wouldn't remember or know this, but they had like this coffee shop or something on the first floor. And that coffee shop served Hebrew National hot dogs.
Really?
With brown mustard, Vienna beef. And so a kid from South Montebello, he used to Oscar Mayer and yellow mustard. It's like, wow, what is this? Yeah. And so the first one is like, whoa. Yeah. So that's how it kind of all began with food in Whittier, simple enough as a hot dog. So I would go just to grab a couple of those until I was 10.
Gourmet hot dog, right? Because it was a step up or big step up.
It was a gourmet hot dog for here, right? Yeah. Maybe because that wasn't around in that part of town.
Yeah.
And then if we had a few extra bucks, we'd go to like Steak Corral, right? Steak Corral was a good working class kind of steak. It kind of still is out over there.
Is
right?
it?
He's still there?
No, it's still there, but like, is it still a good place to go and have dinner?
Not a bad one.
Because it looks like from the outside, I've never been there, but from the outside, it looks like if I go past that door, the building's going to come down on me or something.
Well, no, it's kind of, it used to be really dark in there. It's not as dark anymore. Okay, just make sure you're ready for whatever happens, right? Okay, you're strapped, right?
Quick on your toes.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a dark family restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's actually the opposite. Back in my kid day, they used to give you like a Indian hat with a feather on it.
No way.
Exactly. Nice. Yeah. I don't know if they still do that anymore. But it's that kind of thing I'm saying, just, regular kind of like a Chris and Pitts across the street is kind of the same thing, right? Yeah.
Wow.
How about if there's one thing in Whittier that's missing, maybe you leave the town for this, that you would like to see here in Whittier, what would that be?
Wow, in some respects, I think that's just going to be what's kind of missing is a clear future. What I talked about is the past of a lot of economic strength. And so I've seen the council struggle with these things here in this part of town, the part where I live, out in the Friendly Hills area. And so, I have some serious questions about those kind of things. It's about our grandkids and being up here and stuff like that. We've all heard the complaints about business, and it seems like one hand is pulling the other one way or the other. And so that's really has to change and something really long term. I can love the city to death, just like I love someone who's very close to me. And sometimes when that person is close to you, you just don't see some of the problems. And so if you didn't live in Whittier, you wouldn't think Whittier Boulevard is always the nicest place in the world. But I'm used to seeing the casket company next to the palm reader, and no gripe on the people who have a business, but really in the long term, where are we putting our city? Especially with the public service and mental health needs that are just going to exasperate everything. That's not going to go away. Okay, and we're not going to have no Thanos come and take care of half of a problem for us. But that's based on kind of like an environmental issue when you see what they're doing in that show, right? So that's our problem. My problem is I don't see how we're going to handle that right now. And so that's what concerns me about the city the most.
It's funny because with the same client I was telling you about that I had this meeting with this week, we're having that conversation. And for me, it was about, we're talking about housing and how there's a need for affordable housing or even market rate housing, and how the money that the city of LA, for example, is putting towards programs that are going to help with homelessness and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I think that the problem is not necessarily having the money to do things. It's really the people behind the money that are doing the things.
What they do or what they don't do. But
I'm like, I forget how, it's like $100 and some million that they're going to put towards this campaign. I don't know, Christian, if you know the actual numbers, but they were saying that the homeless count was up by like 12% or something like that.
Yes.
I forget what the number actually means. Like, I don't know how many thousands of individuals we have homeless, but say you have 50,000, say you have 80,000, which is what your population is. If you're to each hand them some of this money to help themselves move on or get themselves in a better situation, where you would have these organizations that know how to be efficient with the money, rather than I call it government, but cities. I think we won't solve the problem, but it'll definitely help itself in the sense that we know how the money's being used and spent. I mean, we could go on forever with this topic, but again, I'm relating it back because you're right. In terms of what the city needs right now, I think there's like this disconnect of like, how do we work? Who do we work with to make things happen?
One last thing before we wrap up, and this is a shout out to an organization called The Whole Child. Mm-hmm. And A Whole Child is an organization that I'm a board member of, and it's been providing mental health services for local community members for about 60 years. And within the last 5 years or so, or a little more, we've branched out into homeless families type of services. The Whole Child is doing great things with that right now. We are partnershiping with builders and other entities in other cities to try to provide that housing component. Yeah. Because that's one element of it. And even we're only dealing with families, homeless children, and not let alone the single male type of issue. But I bring them out because organizations like that, working with cities and local government, and then working with individuals who know the city, businessmen, compassionate people, whatnot, are really all those things that go together. Yeah. You'll hear people say, we don't just need housing, we need housing and rehabilitation. That's right. And we don't need a month, we need 6 months. And you think about housing 6 people with that kind of intense facility for 6 months is just like millions and billions of dollars, right? But so there again, Whittier without a strong economic engine is going to be handcuffed in trying to deal with those issues of their own community, let alone spillover from other places.
Yeah, yeah. Is there something you would like to maybe share that Whittier should be doing this in order to get that economic engine that you think maybe the city's missing the mark on?
I think it's vision. I think it's overall vision at a variety of different levels within those doors over there. And that's what needs to change a little bit. I see the vision from not change much from when I've been here, or ideas that are great ideas, but maybe a little bit not to step with how times are changing, how we change with those times, right? We all know that the economy is changing, how we buy changing. We know retail certainly hasn't stopped, right? The boxes come to our houses every day. You have kids, that's how they shop, right? But we know that the big boxes are out the door. So those kind of things, or how do we make where I'm looking right now vibrant, where you're going to go to a store and go to the movie theater, and then you go to a nice place next door.
The whole experience.
The whole experience here, where sometimes where we're sitting right now doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. Let alone you go on the east side, we're getting into a little bit of trouble, with the Whitwood Mall and with other parts of it. And all of that bring a different store, right? We have a dollar yes kind of thing nowadays. Yeah. And we don't need those stores anymore, I think. I say no to dollar yes, right? But there again, it's about vision, and it's about what other people see the city as also, right? And if they don't see the vision here, I don't see why people would invest in it either. Yeah. So those things have to change. But I'm looking in the room right now, and I know that there's people in this room representative of where I live and the rest of Whittier who have an investment, who have some skin in the game in Whittier. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be that. We want it to be that way, right? I don't have intention of going anywhere, correct. And I don't want to build more walls around me to make me feel comfortable. Yeah. I want to be safe in Whittier. I want to grow old and have fun in it, and I want my grandchildren to come here and like coming to Whittier, and so that's what I want to see.
Well, Christine, put it on the notes because we're gonna make it happen.
Boom.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
And you did a shout out to the whole child. And we actually interviewed Costanza Pachon, episode 89.
Perfect.
So 10
yeah.
episodes back.
There
Check
you go.
that out.
My boss. Right. Exactly. She's a great dynamic woman. And I was going to suggest if you hadn't already, because she's definitely been the fire behind that and providing the fire and the vision that we'll need to tackle those issues as time goes on. Thanks.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Good fun,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
We'll,
Are you on social media at all, or where can people find you? I know I did Google you. It's funny when you said that people Googled you. I Googled you like a second before, and I went to moisalaw.com.
Okay, there's that. And then there is a full disclosure that's kind of embarrassing, but I wasn't really into social media and resistant of it, but changed recently. So I do have a Facebook page too, and that I'm getting up along with something like that. I guess it's a private one at this point. I'm not quite sure. I have somewhat
so stay tuned, right?
Stay tuned as a guy
Check the website.
stumbles through getting his Facebook thing up. So, it'll be here and there, but that's a way to contact me. I'll have Instagram and Twitter. I think that information will come out more, but yes.
Okay, cool.
We'll put it on the show notes and people can find it that way.
Thank you.
Appreciate for you coming on. Thank you.
You got it, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, Whittier.
See you later.